evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, BADBABY, accompanied by my co-host, Robert Pepino. And tonight we have with us Walter Bosley.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. I'm your co-host, Robert Pepino, with your regular host, BADBABY. And we've got a special treat for you tonight. A very special guest by the name of Walter Bosley. Now, if you do not know this name, I would urge you to Google him. Walter Bosley is an investigator of historical occult mysteries, author of pulp fiction novels, and a screenwriter who has appeared on History Channel's Ancient Aliens. And I want to welcome Walter. Walter, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to our talk.
Yeah, same here. And tonight's topic is the secret space program. There is so much going on with that, Walter, especially with the release of the Pentagon, video file off. I think it was the USS carrier Nimitz from the fighter jets, who were, of course, following this unidentified craft or UFOs, or now I guess they're called UAPs, right? Mm-hmm. The terminology has changed, but now I think we have official disclosure, at least the beginning of official disclosure. But of course, this goes much, much deeper, Walter, and I know you've been doing this investigative journalism into the reality of the basically the perpetrated lies by our own government, unfortunately. And it looks like things are all surfacing, that they're coming to the top. So, where do you want to begin with all this? Because I know it's a very large, deep subject.
Well, first, thanks for having me on again. I think there's a lot of folks out there that are reading things into what the New York Times has been releasing. I've seen nothing that they've released that is necessarily extraterrestrial. Even the things that the plane saw, these UAPs, these could very well be advanced classified technology. Remember, key word is advanced. When people say, yeah, but we got nothing that can do this, that, or the other, we got nothing as far as the public knows that can do this, that, or the other. And,
Walter, are they beating around the bush?
About what?
Oh, about telling us.
About what?
About revealing, what's really going on.
Well, again, just like there's nothing there that says it could necessarily be extraterrestrial, a lot of people are, really thinking that this is disclosure as in what everybody's been wanting, disclosure that there's others out there and, the whole ET thing. We are facing a new era of a military-industrial complex that wants to continue to, keep its territory and every once in a while has to reassert itself. And we know that there's this legend based on, the witness Carol Rosen, that von Braun said that they would try to fake an alien threat. And some look at this stuff we're seeing in these New York Times pieces as evidence, of that being set up. For instance, if you've got some advanced technology, put little things out there, little pieces out there, and if people want to think it's ET, then, that can be very useful. So you have to keep in mind that there could be that kind of spin going on. They could be, what they're hinting around about could be some spin, something that's actually not true. A big perception management operation is what could be going on here. And it's very important to remember, again, like I said, nothing that's been in these articles necessarily means that any of it's extraterrestrial. If there's any hemming and hawing and hinting and hedging, it's, in my opinion, because they're trying to keep you from coming to that conclusion. You know, they want to see what the conclusion is that the public is making, but I don't see where it's a big ET disclosure situation.
So, Walter, let me ask you this: do you believe this is a beta test to see how the public would react?
I think that's part of it. You know, you have to remember, too, that they could be testing their own personnel. I know that in the One Times article and in this stuff, everybody points to that Navy fighter pilot. You know, oh, boy, you know, all Navy fighter pilots must be familiar and read into everything that's in the skies. Right? Wrong. Not every pilot gets read in on every advanced platform, despite, by golly, what they might want to tell you and what they might want to think. You know, it's just a fact. So you have a Navy pilot, for example, could be an Air Force pilot, whoever, but you have a Navy pilot who's seeing this thing he's never seen before, and he's never seen it. He's never seen anything perform like this. He's going to assume it's from another world because, hey, he's a Navy pilot, right? And he knows what's in the skies. Well, they could be testing the pilot's reaction to seeing something like this in the sky. And the pilot could very, very possibly, I say, you know, mostly probably, not know that it's our own. So, you know, that's something that has to be considered in this, okay? So, yeah, a test on the public's perception, a test on even our own pilots and personnel. Exactly, it could be just that.
Well, okay, Walter. Then let's go back. Let's go back in time a little bit. Let's do a little time travel backwards.
Okay.
Now, you know, since 1947 and all the conjecture. Let's just use that word conjecture. I wouldn't use that, but I'm just using that as a platform. Conjecture developed around what happened in Roswell in 1947. Mm-hmm. Then we have Philip Corso and so many others that have basically said, hey, look, this is what happened in 1947. You want to believe it, you believe it. You don't, you don't. Right. But, you know, then it comes all the information about all the back-engineered technology that would lead us to say, okay, we have these crafts within our inner circle, everybody who follows us, that we develop these TRB-3s. Now, the TRB-3s are these very triangular-looking crafts, okay? I've seen hundreds and hundreds of videos of this on YouTube. Yes, of course, not all of it's real, but I would suspect that there's a percentage of that is real. Mm-hmm. What I saw in that video, and I would like to get your opinion on this, was not a TRB-3, but a disc-shaped craft. Now, going back, you know, a little forward, you know, the whole disclosure about Area 51 with Bob Lazar and George Knapp breaking that whole story, and even Jim Lear being involved with that. There are multiple crafts. They're trying to figure out how to work them, how to use them. You know, what could it have been? And I'd just like your thought on it. Could it have been one of those, you know, down to retrieve crafts that that those pilots may have seen, that our pilots, you know, secret space pilot program now know how to operate these vehicles very efficiently, and they're using that as a beta. I mean, this thing is so enormous and so distorted in certain ways that you don't know what to believe at certain points, Walter.
Yes, distorted. There is a key word to remember, and we'll come back to that. Here's the thing. You mentioned the reverse engineer craft. A lot of people have forgotten that it is an alleged, theory about reverse engineering craft. This is just something that, you know, people have put out there, and then it's been built upon and built upon. I address in my book, Shimmering Light, I go into the whole Corso thing and what I think Philip Corso was doing. And I think it was perception management, him pushing it as, the implication that it's extraterrestrial. And I go into the details, in how and why I think he did that. And if you are accepting the popular lore, then yeah, it could possibly be one of these craft you're talking about. However, that's a big step that I think too many people have been taking without really thinking it through, and that is accepting all the lore of over the years, because you go back and you look at it, and it can't be verified, it can't be corroborated, or this guy backs up that guy, but this guy backing up that guy is no more verifiable than the original guy. But
Walter, really quick, you mentioned Shimmering Light, your book. Is that still available, and can it still be purchased?
Oh, yeah, it's only available at lulu.com, LULU.com.
Okay, I just wanted everybody to know, so if they wanted to pick up a copy of that and get your take on this, that's fantastic. It's wonderful. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
Well, that's okay. And in that book, I go into exactly what I think Roswell, the whole Roswell thing likely was, and it's not, my position on the whole reverse engineered down craft, I personally think that's a story that's been manufactured for perception management. If you look at the history of certain technologies that were indeed being developed that would have logically led to the things Corso was talking about, this was human development. The Germans were doing stuff that most people don't realize.
Agreed. I agree with you.
30s.
I absolutely agree with you. I've seen enough information on that to say yes. I think they were using in the development during World War II that they found these rings, right? These concrete rings with these massive chains to attach to something. Circular rings.
Have been purported to have been involved with testing the Die Glocke, the bell.
Right.
That's some very interesting research there. I do want to say, though, that a lot of people bring up this Hannibal saucer, German saucer story. That's all fantasy. The Hannibal thing, it never happened. Whatever they were testing, whatever they were working on, it did not result in the Hannibal saucer issue. So that's one that I know it's popular, but it has little to no basis in fact.
Well, and let me bring this up, though. You talk about the bell, and then there was the Kecksburg situation that took place.
Right.
And that was extraordinary in and of itself.
Right.
And, of course, the military was there immediately, keeping civilians away from the whole situation. So, there's some corroboration with what you're saying on that.
Sure. Yeah, I do. I'm in that camp that thinks Kecksburg was an American test of the German bell technology post-war. I definitely think that's what Kecksburg was all about.
Yeah, I kind of have to. I mean, I kind of semi-agree with you, Okay, it could have been a test. Military was there immediately, so it was tracked. They knew where it was going down or in the vicinity. It was called in, obviously, through that county of Kecksburg, and the military was there immediately. So, you get those disagreements from me where I tend to focus on a little bit more.
The physical description of the object itself is
right.
It looked like identical to the bell.
Right. A lot of people saying, "Well, it looked like an acorn or just deformed acorn." But my deeper question would be, is that okay? There was the whole idea of that. Excuse me, I have a little frog in my throat. The whole idea of that, the information was being downloaded to certain people in Germany, and were being given development plans for, anti-gravity, which is not even correct, but I'm just using that term loosely, anti-gravitic technology to be developed. What's your thought on that? I can't remember the exact name of the development team that were involved, but that's what was going on as well at the same time.
Again, I'm going to plug another one of my books here. I go into this in my book, Origin, also at Lulu. In the 1890s, you had a gentleman named Oliver Heaviside who put forth his theory called gravito-electromagnetics, and this is really the starting point of the whole electrogravitics and the alleged anti-gravity technology research stories that we hear through the 20th century. And this was in the 1890s that Heaviside developed this. So think about that. And with gravito-electromagnetics, you could, according to Heaviside, in the 1890s, he did this, remember, he postulated this, you could form a bubble, a gravito-electromagnetic, a GEM, G-E-M bubble around the craft that in which you could also provide even life support, and as well as propulsion and things like that. So it was kind of a unified field technology, so to speak. And this dates, again, this is what my point is, that, human technology was developing in this direction. This dates back to the 1890s. So when you look at that, and then look at the stuff Tesla was known to be doing, and of course John W. Keeley, and then Victor Schauberger after all of them, when you realize that this stuff goes back to the late middle 19th century, it begins to change the perspective that we have on the 20th century and everything being ET and reverse engineered down to ET craft. You see that there is actually a very serious human development of these things, and I think that's the big secret. I think they, would like us to just label everything ET, because the real big secret is, the human technology has been developing this way. And I don't say that ET does not exist. I am convinced ETs exist. But it's a side issue. It's separate from what we're talking about here.
I got you. And believe me, I have my own personal experiences. So as far as I'm concerned, they absolutely exist. But here, let me ask you this then. We have Dr. Stephen Greer, who's, I kind of think that the way you're speaking, that you're kind of in this camp or his thought process that everything that's, well, not everything, I'm just going to say a percentage of what's been developed has come from that technology, and pretty much everything that we're seeing right at this point is a development from, at least my point of view, Walter, from the development of the back engineering of these crafts. Now, I'm not saying that we're not smart enough to develop this, because I absolutely believe we are, but we had that helping hand since those crafts were downed. Okay, either we downed them or there was whatever happened.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm not going to speculate. Okay,
but you mean downed craft as in extraterrestrial?
Right, and I'm not going to speculate on what actually happened. Okay,
but we have to remember that's a huge maybe, and how we understand what's really going on really rests on that maybe, as to if you accept the ET thing, then this stuff all started, in 1947. Unfortunately, there's that history of the human technology development that started almost 100 years before that, which is kind of inconvenient for the ET theory and is kind of the elephant in the room, because it changes what was going on. And if it eliminates, which I think it does personally, if it eliminates the ET downed craft theory for Roswell, it puts a different perspective on a lot of stuff going on today and what's been going on since then.
Well, and I can kind of corroborate what you're saying as well. You're familiar with Bob Dean, I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he's a very, very dear friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time, and we've had many personal conversations. And when he was when he was in the Army, now retired Lieutenant Colonel, or excuse me, yeah. He had released, or was introduced to the assessment papers, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. And he was talking about reading these papers going back to the 1930s. I believe he told me 1939 or 1937, where they were shipping this technology, okay? And he says this technology, not of this earth, to the United States and different facilities around the world, including Germany, the United States, Australia. So I find
what were these documents that he saw?
The assessment, it was termed the assessment papers, and how they described where these downed crafts, however they were downed or they failed for whatever reason, they were, basically captured by different countries, and then shipped off for, back engineering, development, and technology.
Right. Did he? I'm trying to recall. Were these papers he saw while on active duty? Were they briefing papers?
Yes, they were briefing papers on active duty. That's exactly right.
To comment any further on it, I would have to know a little bit more about the provenance of the docs and the context, because there's a lot of stuff that's been going around about documents that in recent years they've been proven to not be what they were either.
Agreed. I totally agree with you. If it's not in your hand and you can't go through it, then how do you know? Absolutely, I agree with you. But the fact of the matter is we have this technology flying around, whether otherworldly, which I happen to believe is part of that, and part of our own, insight and intelligence to develop it. So it may be a complete mixture of both. I don't know.
I think there is a percentage of the stuff people are seeing that is from off-planet sources, off-planet origins. Yes, I agree with that. And, some that are breakaway. However, I think that a lot of the stuff that's being seen, the majority of it, I'm going to go as high as 90%, is human technology, Earth-based human technology. And I know that that's not as much fun, but remember, in my view, that still leaves that 10% that I think are coming from another world. And you know what? All it takes is one coming from another world, and there you go. You get
an argument from me on that. You get an argument.
You've got people from another world. So I'm not raining on that parade by any means. What I'm saying is, what gets pushed as ET, you got to wonder, okay, why is this being pushed as this? And, we do have, these organizations, we do know that military operations will use perception management. I'm personally familiar with that. And, when you're talking about the New York Times saying, look at this, look what the U.S. Navy released, look at this U.S. military pilot, folks, you gotta ask yourself, okay, could this be, the spin of something that's ours? What's really going on here? And as fun as it would be to jump to the ET conclusion, it's just wiser to kind of hold back until more is learned.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. In the reality, not the reality, but the larger scope of things, we don't know. I mean, you and I
and everybody out there in our position, the regular folks, we don't know.
Right.
The best we can do is look at the context, an honest look at the context, and look at the technological facts and the history of the development, and come up with the most reasonable conclusion that we can. And but you're right. I've been out of the military since '99. I did other stuff, counterterrorism, but I've been out of the military since '99, and I don't go over to the Air Force Base every day and get read in on this stuff.
Right. Well, but here's the funny thing, and I'm going to tell you this to be a fact. I have a person in my family who was in the Air Force. Okay, he's been retired a long time. and he actually happened to work at Area 51 in security. And he told me, no, everybody knows. Everybody involved out there knows what's going on. This is factual. This is true. I've seen them. I've touched them. I know what it's all about. Now, as being in this, the other part of this. Okay, so he worked there. He saw it as part of security. But did he really know what it was looking at? Was it a product of human engineering, or was it a product of extraterrestrial origins?
Exactly.
He says it is, because we don't have the ability to recreate that technology. But then I'm thinking to myself, okay, fine, but how do you know that? This is what they're telling you.
What was this person's job on that base?
Air Force security.
Okay, so he was a security troop, security officer.
Yes.
Okay. There's a very good chance that he was not likely. I'm going to say it politely. There's a very good chance.
No, just don't hold back. Say what you got to say. Say what you got to say.
And he, this might have been hearsay. If I'll tell you, if it was something he was briefed in on as being factual, I guarantee you, when he was sat down in that room before he was told anything, he was told at what level this briefing would be classified. And he would probably somewhere in there be reminded of the severe legal penalties. Sharing that. And that's the problem I have with a lot of these guys with military past. And I'm not saying your person here. What I'm saying, particularly people in the field, is they tell someone in the family, or they come out and they want to say, well, this, that, and the other, and the stuff that they're claiming is true, I promise you, would be so classified that they would be in serious trouble if they were revealing actual things. So that's kind of, the way you got to look at it. And I'm not trying to just be an endless plugging.
No. I got it. But, I totally get it. I mean, I got it. I know what you're saying.
In my book, Shimmering Light, I go in and I have to look at critically a story my dad told me for 40 years, my father, okay? And his story has some fantastic elements to it, all right? And as fun and as wondrous and as amazing and strange as it would be to just embrace it and say he was telling the absolute truth, I had to look at it objectively and critically. And what I found, looking in the details and the historical context, is that this story that he showed me in his body language and emotional response and everything, that he sincerely believed really happened, may have been a planted narrative in his case. And the book is this is primarily what the book is about. And he said that he was told Roswell was this other civilization, this hidden civilization, and that it had happened again in 1958, and he was part of this retrieval operation, and he encountered this underground civilization, and all the kinds of things you've heard me talk about elsewhere, and this stuff intrigues me. However, I was trying to get to the truth, and I had to even question my own father's story.
Sure.
And, that's what people have to remember to do. As fun as some of these stories are, you got to look at it with a critical eye.
I agree with you. I'm agreeing with you. I'm like you. I want to get to the truth. I want to get to the facts. If they would lay it all upon us right now, without any hindrance, without any lies, without any deception, then we would know it. Yeah, that'll be a cold day in hell when that happens. I completely agree with you.
Why they don't. I mean, there could be no good reason why they don't. There could be some sinister, controlling, the masses reason why they don't.
Yeah, and that's also called treason against the people of the United States, and they would face serious charges, and most likely, under military rule, you're talking about death.
Right. But the other side of that coin, we must acknowledge equally, is the possibility that there might be a very good reason why this is not disclosed, and we may not be the ones who control disclosure. Those who are so, desired to be disclosed may not wish to be disclosed themselves, see? And so
I need to tell you
situation might
something.
be more complicated than people think.
I need to tell you this story, too, that Bob had told me numerous times, that when he took Bob Bigelow to lunch, right, the billionaire, Bob Dean takes the billionaire to lunch,
right.
And they had a very curious discussion, and this is at one of the conferences Bob was doing, and it was in Nevada, and Bob Bigelow happened to be there, and they, exchanged some words and, became acquaintances. So it just so happened that they went to lunch, and Bob was ranting and raving about the fact that, disclosure needs to happen. People need to know what's going on, the reality of what is happening on our planet, and the extraterrestrials. And Bob said something very curious to him. He says, look, the disclosure is really not up to us. We may have the technology, we may have this, that, and the other thing, but he says disclosure truly is up to them. Right. Because they're the ones who are truly in control. And I'm talking about the ETs.
Yeah.
This is what he said. Is it because their technology is so advanced, if they want it truly disclosed, they're going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. That's to me, that's...
I think you're afraid of us, Walter, because, the ETs, do you think that they don't want to disclose to us because... my take on it is that they don't understand us. They're more afraid of us because we're so violent and we kill each other.
Yeah, I don't think humanity is so primitive and any more violent than all the other ET beings out there. Personally,
Walter, have you taken a look around, seeing what's happening on the planet right now?
I'm a military officer, and I when I was in counterterrorism, I worked in war zones, so I am personally familiar with. But between being law enforcement and working in war zones, I'm pretty firsthand familiar with the bad things humans do. But to assume that the ETs are some angelic, they've conquered all the bad stuff just because they can travel through space, that is. In my opinion, a ridiculous leap.
That's totally ignorance. That's pure ignorance if anybody thinks that. Because you said it right, Walter, just because they have a higher technology does not mean that they're any better than us, that they have some angelic form, that they, reached, some state of moral sanity. Absolutely. I agree with what you're saying.
So the reason I bring that up is I don't think they're any more afraid or concerned about interaction with us than we will be when we start going out there more than human beings were when they started crossing the oceans and going to continents they had never been to. Okay, they still did it. They still went and interacted. Yes, some bad stuff happened, but it didn't really stop anybody. So I just don't think that I don't think we're the most rotten guys on the block in space. I don't buy into that. That we've got bad, we've got a lot of good. We're mostly good.
I agree with you. It's the old adage, a few bad apples, right?
But I do not think that we are worse than who's out there. I'll tell you why people think that. The people that want to spin the whole ET thing for other purposes, namely the New Age, which I call the Screw Age, they're trying to take things in a direction that they've got their shtick. Okay, a lot of them have their con going based on in our modern times. There's a lot of people that want to replace classic traditional religion with something else, and the Screw Age people have latched onto ET, and they're basically that's the replacement in this modern secular world. we don't want to believe in God and angels and devils, so we'll believe in benevolent ETs who we are so unworthy and they are so exalted. And it's just a game that really has no basic basis in reality or fact, because how many of those people have, honestly, a lot of them lie about it, but how many of them have actually gone up there and interacted with so many ETs to come to this conclusion?
You're right. I want to jump forward just a little bit. Let's talk about Gary McKinnon and his discoveries about the secret space program. And then, that I think that's a big subject and a big topic. I mean, the United States has been trying to extradite him here for what he did. The reality is, I think he just opened up a door of reality. What's going on with the secret space program called Space Warden that he discovered on the NASA programs. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Oh, well, yeah, the McKinnon stuff is really interesting because, wow, he got it from military sources, right? So if we look at it face value, then he might be the guy who tapped into actual documented evidence of a secret space program. And I have no problem with that possibility at all, but coming from a military background and particularly operational background, I still kind of keep it in the back of my mind that McKinnon might not have fully understood, and ergo the people who've read the stuff since then might not have the full context. They might not understand that what they're reading and what they're seeing could be a form of coded substitution language for much more down-to-earth operations. This has to be acknowledged, that's possible, which, again, I know it takes some of the fun out of discussing, what McKinnon found, but I don't dismiss what he found as just necessarily down to earth. I think he definitely got onto something that they, so to speak, did not want, to get out publicly, and I think it does have to do with what we would throw in the category of secret space program.
Yeah, no question about it. But I guess the bigger question is why have they been keeping this so secret? If this truly is human engineered development, and technology, why would they keep this away from 99.99% of human beings on the planet? That's the bigger question.
We've always had military secrets, particularly with technology. We tried to do the same when we were developing the atomic bomb during that war, and after that, with the the rise of the Cold War, this has been standard operating procedure with military technology. And there is, on the positive side, we all know the negative side. That's been written about and discussed ad nauseum. But on the positive side of it, it could be just as simple as this. It's the secret weapon for when you need it. It could be a secret weapon for some threat from out there. Now, here's where we've got the confusing part. We got von Braun, who before he died said they're going to use the ET threat, they're going to fake it and use it to control us. But here's the crazy thing. That does not mean that there isn't really an ET threat out there. So, if you want to judge everything based on what von Braun said, then there is no ET threat, and that's just a big lie of the military-industrial complex. But if you want to be, honest and reasonable about this, you have to say, in a universe this big, there's got to be countless civilizations, and by golly, some of them are going to be Klingons, And so, it could be that, ironically, there really is some threat out there. My point is, I think it's been kept a secret because, A, it's a military program. B, it would be the most advanced military program, Military and most advanced usually equals classified.
You get no argument from me, but if it's this is the problem I have. If it is truly developed by human beings, this technology. Just let's leave ET out of this whole thing. Yeah. And we come up with this, new propulsion system which can advance humanity to, light years ahead of time. Why wouldn't they give that technology to humanity? Say, look, we've made a tremendous discovery, and we're going to make this publicly available for everybody in the world, because now we have the ability, to stop using planes burning fuels, stop using cars that burn, oil and gasoline, and just eliminate that. You know why? Why? I know exactly why. I know exactly. I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer that. The question is, why wouldn't they do that? Why couldn't we just eliminate the combustion engine and the reason we haven't eliminated the combustion engine, the reason we haven't eliminated, using fuel, these and I don't believe it's fossil fuels. I haven't.
Yeah, abiotic fuels. Absolutely.
Yeah, abiotic fuels.
Agree.
This whole idea of these fuel burning things. Look, it comes down to this: money. Okay, the oil companies are powerful. They employ thousands of people. And look, here's the thing: these things work. They work sufficiently enough that everybody's happy driving their cars out there. Everybody's happy hopping on an airplane, okay? And if it works sufficiently and continues to make the multi-billions of dollars that it is in the various industries, in their view, not yours and mine, in their view, why stop and why upset that apple cart? And so then add on the military perspective. Okay, the public and public industry they're still fine for a while, okay, with this combustion engine and using fuels. Yeah, there's a few people squawking and making noise, but for the most part, the masses, they're perfectly fine with it. Let's not share this stuff quite yet. Let's keep it in our secret weapon box, okay, so that, when the next big one, World War, whatever you want to call it, or invasion or whatever, comes, we've got this, and maybe ours can edge out what the Russians or the Chinese or whoever have been developing. See, that's really, and again, we're dealing with, we're proposing that the military has this technology. You got it. To answer the question, why not share it? You got to think. You got to understand how they think. And again, you've got the factor of, hey, the oil companies. And industry that's making way too much money and employing way too many people to just pop all that in the trash can.
Right. Collapse the economy. Exactly to the point I was trying to get. If they were to do that, they would collapse the economy of the world. Absolutely.
A great part of it. Yeah, indeed, they would.
Yeah. So, all right, Walter, let's move forward here. Let's talk about Tom DeLonge, how he fits in all this, and what's his role, because basically that came out of left field.
Yeah.
You got this rock and roller, to the stars deal. I mean, how bizarre and weird and the manipulation and all this takes place. Lay it out for me, man.
Okay, here's what you got. You got a guy who's wealthier than most of us. He's sincere in his beliefs, okay? He can reach a big audience. Oh, boy. Speaking as, an operator, I'm looking at him and saying, hey, guys, we can use this guy. I think Tom DeLonge is simply being used by military-industrial complex guys, or even, the military itself. What he's actually done, and I'm not the first guy to say this by any means, he set up his new company, his new profession that he'll do for the rest of his life. Okay, he's advanced beyond being, a leader of a band. Okay, so this is his new shtick. This is his new company. I'm going to produce movies. I'm going to produce albums. I'm going to put books out there. It's an entertainment company. Oh, and by the way, we're going to build this rocket ship, this spaceship that, uses time dilation and wowee, all this stuff. Send us your money. Donate here. And people, and I know there's some, I guess some corporate interests, there's going to be people that are going to throw this guy money. And I just don't think Tom DeLonge and his thing is not going to be the source of disclosure It may be that a year from now it's just the butt of a joke. 5 years from now, people will be saying, remember when DeLonge came out with, the To the Stars Academy, ha, ha, ha. He might have moved on to another shtick by then, but I don't put much stock in it.
Okay. It's interesting that when this New York Times story was released, Tom was saying, hey, guess what? The information's coming. The information's coming. You think there might be a little more to that than him just being used as a puppet?
Well, see, here's the thing, though. It's what's he being used for? I say any connection to DeLonge and his group of people around him to these New York Times stories is part of what he's being used for, and I think he's being used for a perception management operation. Okay, it's probably, in my opinion, less ET and more, SSP technology covering. It's a spin. He's being used for perception management spin. In my
but could it also be, Walter, that because he is this rock and roller, and he has he's in the limelight and a lot of people know who he is, that could be used part of the process of disclosure to see how people will react?
It's possible, but here's the thing: we got to remember. Yeah, he's all those things, but he's not. There's bigger people out there. Why not him? See, I think what it is he's a guy who, God bless him, he made his success in pop music, and he had the time on his hands and the means to be poking his nose into this stuff, and I think good, intelligent operators saw that and said, oh, yeah, here's the positives of using this guy. Yeah, he can reach a lot of people, but, a lot of people know who he is, but not everybody knew who he is. His band had some hits, but remember, they weren't so big. Why not, use someone bigger? If you're going to try to reach a huge number of people, why didn't they select a rap or hip hop star? Because I would argue that in popular music is bigger than what Tom DeLonge has been doing.
Well,
and
but then
trying to reach larger group of people,
Right, but Walter, on the other side of it, it could be that Tom DeLonge, first of all, I think he truly believes and understands what's going on the planet.
Sure.
He's been understanding it for a long time, and he just happened to be that vehicle.
He believes he may not understand any better than you or I. Remember, his claim to putting all this together was he read a lot of books.
Right. Well, yeah, right. But where do you start? You start reading. You start looking at videos. You start digging into information.
But there's been people that they've read all these same books and more, and they take it another step further, and they go out and investigate, and they do a lot more research, to try to put this together and understand it. And the stuff that they put together and present that they found in their understanding, shows that it's a little bit more of a complex situation. And I just don't think Mr. DeLonge necessarily knows any more than most people.
Look, I'm not disagreeing with that statement, what you said. I just think maybe he was a vehicle to help push this along. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I personally believe, Walter, that disclosure is coming in increments. This may have been another part of it. I don't know that for a fact, but it sure seems that way as we're watching these things unfold right now. I mean, things are getting crazy out there. If you want to go on the political side, John and Tony Podesta, and they've disappeared, closed up shop, and the flight going to Japan turns around, the Guantanamo Bay. I mean, you name it. It's all over. It's crazy all over the internet, right? So we have disclosures coming out all over the place.
Yeah, but it's crazy all over the internet, but you got to be careful with what you read on the internet, right? A lot of crazy stuff out there being reported that's not true.
Walter, let me ask you, what is your take then on all the animal mutilations
particularly the missing people. And I find that to be a true, real mystery. There's something very, very strange going on there. Just like anybody else, we can say, well, maybe they've been abducted, but then again, there's a bunch of the versions of the stories where no, they find their bodies later, or they find them, alive, and it wasn't really an abduction situation. So,
Walter, just to interject something here,
of other dimensions.
Yeah, Walter, just to interject something here. If you go back to Jaime Maussan's videos or shows where he shows an alien appearing out of basically a telephone pole trying to abduct a kid, and that was as real could get. But that just put that on hold for a second, and this was years back. Now, David Paulides in his books 411 Missing, all throughout the National Forest of the United States, most of those people do not come back, and the ones who do come back, a very fractional of those people come back alive. Most of them show up dead.
Yeah. What I'm saying is the ones who they find, or the cases they solve to the extent that they find them, they either find their remains or they don't recall what happened. True. And you're right. The majority are still missing. That's why, of course, the whole thing is so intriguing. It'll be nice when Paulides finally puts forth what he thinks. He
never has. You're right. He never has. He won't own to it. He won't own up to it. I know.
And I understand that. I understand, why he's doing that. But I think it's very intriguing. But it could be, there's a possibility that there's something to do with, an interdimensional answer to that, which is really way out there. But, it's just as interesting as an abduction theory. Some people think that, he says it's related to – some people say that Paulides thinks that it's Bigfoot related, but I've never heard him say that. So, we don't know.
Yeah, either have I.
Crypto. There's the crypto possibility, right? Here's one big thing about it is the lack of cooperation on the part of the National Park Service, in my opinion, as a federal agent, is absolutely atrocious and should not be tolerated. The things that he says that he's gone through, they're just unacceptable.
That was one of my dreams, was to go to all the national parks. I won't go there now. I don't need to visit the Grand Canyon.
That's what the National Park Service is afraid of, supposedly is, more people won't want to go. And that's kind of like the town council and the mayor in the movie Jaws. Don't say shark.
Right.
And I think that's why they won't cooperate, or they don't even keep a list of the missing people.
Yeah, to me,
they don't want anyone to really know. They really don't want the people to know the truth.
There's an Inspector General case just waiting to be open, in my opinion, that just sitting right there. Somebody needs to look into that. But, again, there's all sorts of theories, and we're really, at present, no closer. What we've got is just this intriguing mystery that I think is a real mystery. I don't think the answer is going to come back that, it was just a mundane thing all along. People got lost in the wilderness, and no, I think there's something else to it, indeed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. So why don't we move forward here, and let's get to this total hoax and a scam, in my opinion, but I'd like to get your thoughts. David Wilcox and Corey Good, and I like to call them the blue chicken aliens theory here. This is beyond belief to me, what the hoax and scam they have perpetrated. And yet, on Gaia TV, on Coast to Coast, there is something very sinister going on with that, Walter. I don't know any other way to put it, but they are scamming and duping a lot of people. What do you say to that?
Well, I think, let's remember, I think what's primarily, there's multiple elements to it, I think, but I think primarily what's going on is simple math. It's money. Gaia and Coast to Coast, they make their living off of true believers, okay? So they're going to feed those people what they want to hear. I think that's why Coast to Coast, makes those guys frequent guests, particularly Wilcock. Gaia, I think that's why Gaia, makes them stars of their own show on there, is because they're making money off the true believers. So that's the primary reason I think they get promoted in those venues. I think where you get into the sinister, so to speak, element, or let's just say the distasteful or possibly, unethical, is, are Wilcock and Good themselves, peddling stuff that they cannot. Not that they just cannot, they will not present real evidence. They will not,
because they don't have any evidence to present. Walter.
Exactly. Here's why they don't sue people like myself and others who call them frauds and, hoaxsters, is because they know darn well that the stuff they're saying they cannot prove. If they could prove it, then they could prove it sufficiently in a court of law. And by golly, all of us critics would have egg on our faces and have to admit, well, gee, they were right. But they're not right. What they're doing is they're just selling, their wares and their shtick to their core.
Snake oil salesman, Walter.
Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, look at Good. He went from, I was a time-traveling secret space program commando, this 20 and back nonsense, and we'll get into Basiago shortly. And now he's up there in Colorado, and he's like a spiritual guru. Gee, what a surprise! It's just a pattern.
Walter, have you seen? Walter, just not to interrupt real quick, but have you seen his website? When you pull that up, it looks like the introduction to a movie. The way they portray this guy, it is beyond ridiculous, and people are falling victim to this garbage.
Yeah, and look, well, he's dying for his material to be, the rights to be bought in a big movie or TV series. Heck, I think he even talks about it. There was the comic book and stuff. It's all shtick. It's all, DeLong's thing is no different, except superficially and how it's presented. It's the same kind of, it's just a shtick, it's just a business. But Corey Good and Wilcock, they're just using something that dates back into the early days of modern ufology. They're no different than the contactee culture, I say with air quotes, that hey, I met people from Venus, and then, within a couple of years, they're space angels and they're, into all the new age, the guru stuff, and it's just a pattern. It's just a pattern, and they're following it. It's a time-honored tradition that I think Wilcock, personally, is a master of. When something he purports gets a lot of critical cannon fire, he does the classic thing where he just jumps to another topic and emphasizes that while, lie, deny, and counter-accuse the people that are firing the volleys of reason and rationality and logic at his stuff. And I think and I'm not the first to say this, there's other people out there that have said it before me, I think Wilcock just basically kind of coached Good on this, how to do this, and, that's what Good's doing. It's all nonsense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It is. But what's happened is they've taken, once again, and whoever's above them, okay? And I don't think it's all about money either. To a certain extent, probably 90% of it. But I think some people in, in very high positions said, hey, how would you guys like to, make a lot of money and maybe misdirect a lot of people? And it's disgusting to me.
That's very possible. That's very possible. The way it actually works, though, is I'm gonna fine tune what you're saying, because I agree with what you're saying basically. But let's fine tune that. I don't think Wilcock or Good would be aware that they were being used by someone high in power. These are guys who they would be built up. Look, I used to have to, anybody that's run sources, worked sources or assets, you play with their ego. You push their ego buttons and pull their ego strings all the time to get do what you want them to do, okay? These two guys talk about egos, and I know because I have one too, so I recognize it when I see it.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
These guys, guarantee you, it would be a handler situation, and their buttons are being pushed and their strings are being pulled.
I mean, without ego, we wouldn't be accomplishers.
Exactly. Right. Ego is not evil.
When ego gone wild is what it's bad.
Yes, exactly. An ego gone wild or a sociopath, someone who has no...
That's the correct word, sociopaths. Thank you.
And here's the thing. The reason Corey Good and Wilcock can't take legal action against all us critics saying they're making this stuff up is because they know darn well that they can't prove any of it because they are making it up, or they're suffering a delusion, and for that I recommend they seek professional help. But if it's not a delusion, they're making it up. Basiago, too. I mean, he's a lawyer, okay?
Look, Walter, I need to tell you this. I interviewed Basiago way back when, and he talked about this stuff as he absolutely believed what he was saying. Now, I'm not gonna say that what he was saying is wrong or right, but I definitely think that he was under some sort of mind control. Absolutely. I mean, the things he was telling me were just extraordinary, but he absolutely believes it. So there's your MK Ultra mind control, I think, at work right there.
I won't get into whether it's wrong or right. I'll get into whether it's true or not, and it's not true. Whether he believes it or not, because remember, my dad really, really believed what he was telling me, and I found very strong evidence that it might not have been true, but he, of course, really believed it. I think, Basiago might believe it, but it ain't true. The stuff he's saying is not true. If he can prove it, mea culpa. Let's bring it out there. Let's see the proof. But what happens is when you ask for that, whether it's him or Good or, any what they do is they come back at you and say, just like there was a host of a show out there that I remember, and I comment on him in one of my videos, and he was going off ranting a little bit, saying all these guys wanting to know, demand evidence, man. If I hear this one more time, I was laughing. We demand evidence. These wild claims, back it up with something other than a friend who's in cahoots with your nonsense saying, yep, I'll back him up because I saw it too. Well, when we say back it up, we mean with something a little bit more than backing up your buddies, who agree.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Extraordinary stories demand extraordinary evidence. Put up or shut up. Boom. There it is.
Yes. Look, here's the thing. I am not opposed at all to discussing ideas and throwing things out there and saying, hey, this could be this could be that. In my books, I use the word speculation, and I'm speculating numerous times. I make sure that I tell people, look, this is what I think. This is my speculation and what I base it on. When you are going to come out so big and so constant and start trying to usurp your presence onto other events that you're not invited to, you're not a part of, which that went on with Corey Good's people.
Absolutely.
And you're out there saying all these things, at some point you have to expect, okay, it's time that you prove what you're saying. It's time that you provide something rather than to continue to want all the spotlight and, ask for money. Don't raise your hackles when a lot of people want to say, well, show me some proof here. Show me some evidence. You've been saying these things for a long time, and you don't say they're speculation. You say it's true. You say it's real. To some degree, prove it.
Right. No, I mean, if you can't prove it, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Now,
and they can't because it's not true.
Right. They can't prove anything. That's my whole point. So let's move on to something that is, in my opinion, much more real. Let's talk about Billy Meyer. The case, the absolute case that has been ignored by MUFON, Dr. Stephen Greer, and everybody else, which we have video, photographic, metal analysis, and audio analysis, all been proven. This goes back, 70 years? All the evidence is there. It's been pushed forward, and it's always been kicked back by who? By the so-called organization which is looking for the proof of extraterrestrial life. Now that is a tall tale sign to me, my friend, that some people in the organization don't want the truth to get out. Let's talk about Billy Meyer. Let's talk about Michael Horn. As abrasive, as that man is, I know he's a little difficult to deal with, but I love him, and he's a friend of mine. Let's talk about that.
I am not as much an expert or really up on the Meyer case enough to offer other than my understanding is I've also heard the critical side, and my understanding is that that's why it gets rejected is because there were some issues with the provenance of the things. But that's the extent of my knowledge was the last time I looked at that stuff. So.
All right. I thought you'd have been up to date on it. It's okay. No.
Well, you got to remember, here's how this works for me. I have looked at the Billy Meyer stuff, and I've looked at the critical stuff, and the critical rebuttal to it was sufficient to me at the time that on to the next thing. See? So that's why it's been a long time since I looked at the Billy Meyer stuff, and it's not as fresh in my mind to be able to, discuss it intelligently. But
okay, that's fine. Maybe next time we can have that conversation.
Yeah, I'll refresh my memory.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's critical evidence, in my opinion, everything that is presented. I mean, I remember when that started with, Randolph Winters, with Lee and Britt Elders, and, he just passed away not too long ago, Wendell Stevens, way back then. And, I mean, it was incredible information, and it just seemed to get all overlooked by the so-called purporters of the truth. And that really just turned my stomach. You're right.
There's been a culture of, our way or the highway kind of, I think you know what I'm talking about. In ufology and anything that was outside that popular strain. For example, I'll use an example, the ETH people. It's ET, and they don't want to hear anything else. Anything else is just a disinformation campaign put out there to divert people from the fact that it's all ET. And within it's ET or nothing else, it's, for the last 40 years or whatever, it's the grays. We don't want to hear about human extraterrestrials. We don't want to hear about anything, but the grays. Now, of course, Corey Good is doing his Blue Avian thing. That's a separate thing. But for years, it was ET, and by golly, if it wasn't a story about the grays, we don't want to hear it. Unfortunately, with ufology, and even some of the stuff that you and I and others might have for a while said, wow, there's something to that, or wow, we really like that. Unfortunately, the whole ufology field community, the whole lore of it, is full of an overwhelming amount of crap. And this is kind of, the assumption about Roswell that went on for decades. And, in recent years, it's been proven that some of the so-called sources never existed, or it was so long that there's no way in heck, their memory is going to be that clear, or they were making it up, or, it's really the ETH theory explaining Roswell has fallen apart. And there's a lot of people that are in denial. There's still people that want to traipse out MJ-12 documents, much to the hilarity of most people who realize those are not what they're purported to be. So, ufology has this issue, and it needs to clean up its house, really, if it's going to go forward in an intelligent Because there is real stuff going on, you're right, that gets pushed aside because it doesn't fit the model they want to push.
Right. Everybody wants it to fit it.
About Travis Walton's story.
That's what I was just going to bring up. Thank you.
I mean, those guys sound pretty convincing. They do,
and then there's issue with the. I think what it was is the polygraph was indeterminate, or whatever that middle ground is, which, having some personal professional experience with polygraph, that can be, I'm saying can, I didn't say is, but that can be a flag, because a polygraph, look, there's no such thing as a lie detector test. No such thing. That's not what a polygraph is. All a polygraph is a fancy way to measure nervous responses.
Right.
And they've developed a protocol to apply a determination of honesty to those physical responses. But, there are people who will spend hours in their polygraph to get their security clearance because they're going over, some type of official travel they did for the government, and the people are just nervous, or they're afraid they're going to be asked about their lifestyle. So they get nervous and they mess up their tests. So that's a whole can of worms, and I know a lot of people base the Walton thing on, I think he did his own polygrapher and he passed that one. Am I remembering that correct? I can't recall.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, he passed one, but he was non-determined, inconclusive on another.
But they all took but Walter, they all took the test again, and they did pass the polygraph at that time for whatever that's worth.
They did what?
They all retook the polygraph test again, and it proved to be that they were telling the truth.
Yeah, they were telling.
Do you think that the first time they could have flunked undetermined or whatever because they were so nervous and freaked out?
Sure, yeah. If the first ones were inconclusive, it could have been because they were so nervous. Now remember, Travis himself is the only one who encountered allegedly the extraterrestrials, correct?
Right, but they
and
all
one of the other guys saw one or two of the other guys, or did all the guys see the thing in the sky?
All the guys saw the craft because they were coming back from work, cutting down the trees, and Travis was the one who jumped out because he was like flabbergasted, amazed, and because he was brazen and bold, he ran under the thing. They're all telling him to run back to the truck, saying, "Travis, don't go there, don't go there." They're all witnessing this, and they all watched a beam of light. Blue light strike him and knock him off his feet.
I don't know what to conclude. I'm not going to I don't feel comfortable writing him off as, he made it all up by any means, or those guys made it all up. I mean, something's there in that. I just don't know what to think. It would be great to have a personal talk with him sometime, because that can really, give you that perspective you need to go, okay.
That gives you the insight.
I have tried to contact him. I would love to have him come on. If I do, you want to come on with him?
You might. Gladly, I'll come on anytime you want me to. But there's probably someone else that would be better to have on with him that knows more about his case. I was just thinking, it would be great to talk with him on a personal level, because you can discuss those things you don't say, in a public forum, that it can be convincing.
And you're talking a burger and a beer.
It's because you get the real, you just get those nuances that you're not going to get in public forum when you're strangers.
You definitely get a different perspective when it's one-on-one, no question about it. Well, Walter, let me ask you about what's your thoughts on the Betty and Barney Hill case, which is one of the most publicized cases of that era.
I have over the years come to doubt that it was an ET thing. I think they were, what do they call them, MILABs, military abduction things.
Yeah. Okay.
I think what happened with Betty and Barney Hill was that, and I think the ET element was a planted narrative, so to speak, a planted memory, and the stuff they put in there was useful to whatever the perception management spin they wanted to do at that time. That's what I think of Betty and Barney Hill. I think they were my labs, to use the current parlance.
Interesting. I mean, my thought process goes differently, but so let's talk about what's new from your perspective in the secret space program. What are we looking at? What should we maybe expect as the future goes forward in future events, as maybe they're going to present us with more crafts, this TR3Bs, or the re-engineered crafts from Roswell, if that's true, from Area 51. Where are we going with this? How are we moving forward with all this?
Well, there's two things to answer your question immediately come to my mind. Number one, the technology. It's, from my perspective, looking at this and military experience and such, blah, 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 blah. We're not talking about Starfleet here, okay? I know there's people that want to say, oh, it's all this advanced starships. No, it would not be, okay? In my opinion, from the actual real-world, down-to-earth type of research here, you're talking about a space-traveling technology that's probably about 20 to maybe 40 years ahead of what we have publicly, okay? Now, instead of the Starship Enterprise, which, no, I do not think we have anything like that, what we likely have, the U.S. Navy's been doing for about a century. The U.S. Navy, for a long time, has been putting personnel into a craft, and running them in a hostile environment. It's called a submarine, okay? And a modern submarine would translate very well in space, okay? And they've got 100 years experience doing this. So I would say that a starship is going to be much more like one of our submarines, maybe 20 to 40 years ahead of our most advanced ocean-going submarine. It's going to be much more like that than it's going to be like the Starship Enterprise or anything on Star Wars, okay? Now, as far as where we're going, here's big picture what I think, okay? The world right now is like the world Europe was, for example, during the Renaissance, okay? Or the early Renaissance, before Columbus announced that he had found the Americas, okay? I think your audience is familiar with the idea that there were people who knew these continents were here long before Columbus. Columbus knew they were here before, his voyage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was all propaganda. But what it did was, okay, the Columbus voyage was used by the powers that be in Europe and other in-the-know places over there on other continents to open up the new world for to exploit the resources and to give the population a new place for political, socio-political, and economic reasons. This is why suddenly Columbus, announces the new world in 1492. But they knew about it for centuries already. Here's what I think. Here's what's going on today. Our guys, our leaders, certain governments, certain leaders, and members, of course, of the military secret space program that, would actually exist, they know that there's habitable worlds out there. They already know this, okay? And they know that with human nature and with our history, it's really inevitable that they're going to leave the planet and go out there to these places. And what they are doing is they're working towards the right time when, oh, look, we're going to disclose this. Oh, golly, look what we found. You can breathe on Mars, actually. By golly, we didn't know that. When actually, and this is an example, when actually it's something that they've known for decades, maybe a century, that kind of thing. Okay, I think that's where we're at, is we're getting closer to the point where they're going to open up outer space to the common people. Now, why? Here's something they did, I think, this last year or the year before, when NASA, I think it was 2 years ago almost now, when the U.S. government and NASA opened up space travel to private corporations. That's where we've got SpaceX and all
right.
now. Okay, that was a big deal. I don't think people realized how big that was towards what I'm saying. Okay.
No, I got that, but that's only for people with, that are very, very wealthy.
Well, hold on.
For commoners,
It starts there. It's got to start somewhere. Who do you think had the money to build the ships in the Columbus days? Guys with money. But what did they need? They needed people to man those ships. And then when they went and established colonies, they needed people to till the soil and build the buildings and make those colonies. This is what I'm talking about.
Good point.
It's eventually not you and I, not our kids probably, maybe our grandkids, I would say definitely our great-grandkids. That's going to be an option. That's going to be an option when they get fed up of being in this state or that country. They get fed up of being on Earth because all the nonsense and crap we were talking about earlier. They will have the option that people during the 15th and 16th centuries had. Well, I can get on a boat and go to the New World and remake myself and build something new. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same thing. And I think where we're at is they know what's habitable out there. They know somewhat who's out there. And they're just waiting to move until the masses have reached the point where, and they've got the technology where they can get us there safely, and they've got it squared away as to, again, things like this, whether you agree with it or not, who's going to get mineral rights, who's going to get this, that, and that kind of thing. And then when they establish that and open it up, they'll say, okay, teeming masses, we need people to work at these places and to populate these new colonies.
Well, Walter, I need to throw this out there. I mean, okay, let's talk about Elon Musk really quick. I mean, SpaceX, right? He wants to put one of his cars in the top capsule of the rocket so he can have his car on Mars. I mean,
okay.
Talk about ego. Talk about eccentricity. I mean, that's beyond belief.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insanity. That's
but crazy it is. As crazy as it is, I love it. You know why? Because if he's got the money to build that spaceship to get his car to Mars, then guess what he's done? He's opened the doorway to get you and me and our grandkids and, other things and other people up there. So let him have that ego. Let that ego he's got fuel humanity to the stars. Okay, look, he's not using his ego like Adolf Hitler or Joseph Stalin or, Kim Jong-un. He's not using his ego for that. He's demonstrating his ego by reaching for the stars and will be dragging, if he's successful, he'll drag thousands of us along with him.
All right, so let me throw this in here because there has to be a cohesion that needs to take place here. We have the Secret Space Program, okay?
Yeah.
Now, the Secret Space Program, with the development of the anti-gravitic technology, has to have some sort of protection for these crafts to get outside the Van Allen belts. There's not one, there's two, there's three belts, okay?
Huh?
All that nonsense about the moon in 1967, 66 was all theater. It might as well have been a Disney movie.
You're saying we didn't go to the moon?
Oh, absolutely. I know we didn't go to the moon.
We'll just not discuss that.
Okay, but we can go beyond that. What I'm saying is we did not go to the moon in a conventional way. I was trying to get,
now you're in my neighborhood. Okay.
Right, and not
Apollo
the
11
conventional.
was not the first time we went, in my opinion.
Exactly, and I was getting to that point.
On the issue of the Van Allen belts, go
right.
back.
So there is no. So there's no way.
Yeah, there is. Wait.
Okay.
Never say there's no way. With Oliver Heaviside, the problem is solved because, again, he presented his theory that you can create this protective bubble around the craft. And if you've got to look at the theory. I talk about it in my book Origin, and you can find it, in sources out there. The Van Allen belts are no problem, basically, with Heaviside's gravito-electromagnetics. Not a problem.
Okay.
And I would say that the Apollo rocket and craft, they were using this Gravito-electromagnetics, yes. I agree with you. We went to the moon, okay? And that craft you saw went to the moon, but there was technology on that we weren't told about.
Okay. I'll agree to disagree. I think what we were seeing was an illusion. I think we went to the moon. We went in different crafts that, that were, back engineered or whatever.
We did that too, but the Apollo thing was the dog and pony show
right.
for the public.
Okay, so we agree. Absolutely. So, go ahead.
Why Apollo went to the moon. I disagree with you on we didn't go. We went. Those guys went. Armstrong.
Right. I was just simply saying we didn't go in a conventional way. And also
right.
the problem.
Yeah, and there's more than meets the eye on the Apollo 11 craft. Yes.
Right. And the other issue I had with that is that all these guys, all these astronauts said, well, I really don't remember, what it was like. And no, I didn't see any stars, which I find very bizarre because if there's no atmosphere on the moon, you should be able to see the stars as clear as we do much clearer than we do from planet Earth. That was really bizarre to me.
MK Ultra, blocking
right.
memory.
Exactly.
Think about it. Neil Armstrong, okay, he was an intelligent, educated, talented pilot, and, his personality, he was just kind of a down-to-earth, all-shucks kind of guy. I don't care how Jimmy Stewart you are. If you are truly the first human being to set foot on the moon, you're going to show up in a parade once in a while. You're going to show up on anniversary shows on TV.
Right.
You might stand there and go, oh, shucks, people, it was nothing. But you know what? You're going to be a little bit more willing to talk about that for the people interested, for their sake, if for nothing else, than he was. I mean, he was notoriously shy and almost a hermit about the whole thing.
He was absent most of the time.
Well, to me, the answer is, in my opinion, it's because he knew and they knew that he wasn't the first one to set foot there, that others had gone before, but it was classified. That's
right.
my conclusion on that.
Right. And look, I agree with you. There was definitely a big hoax going on, and they perpetrated on the American people. So this is part of the problem that I have with everything that's been going on is that, release everything, tell people the truth, let the chips fall where they may, and let's get on with living and let's get on with the future of humanity. Because creating the illusions and the lies and the scams just continuously destroys the human, not the moral concept, but destroys our hearts. Our hearts. When you lose hope, and so many people have lost hope within the last 2 decades of everything that's been going on, starting from 9/11, there needs to be a light shed on real reality for people to hold on to say, you know what, we are not doomed to our own fates that have been created by these oligarchs and monsters who want us to live under their rule, but to shed the old skin, get rid of this system of control and corruption and scam, and let humanity flourish and move forward where it needs to. This has been so deep within me, Walter, and I want to see this come forward.
And in that, you may have answered the question as to why, okay? Let's take it back to before the New World was revealed to the masses of Europe, for example, okay? I would say the Templars and, other merchants, the guys in the top and in the organizations that knew these continents were here, I would say they were faced with the same questions that and the same issues that you were just outlining there. Gosh, look how crappy it is to live in Europe for the common man. When do we reveal that there's this new world that they can get away? Oh, no, we got to keep it secret. We got to keep it secret now because you're right. There were the oligarchs even back then, and they wanted to control the resources, and they wanted to control this, that, and the other. Well, look from their perspective today. Look what happened the last time a new world was opened, right? A bunch of people from England and other places in Europe said, to heck with those guys across the water. We're going to have a revolution and break away and start our own country. Now, I would argue that the oligarchs are looking at the situation today, and this is awful. I don't like these guys. But I would say they're looking at this and they're going, okay, the next time we open up the new world, we're going to do it differently because, by gosh, we're going to control them and we're going to make it impossible for them to break off and start their own country, their own world. See, I think that's the heinous reason why, theoretically, within my view, that they know what's out there, and it's comparable to what happened back then during the Renaissance period. That's my view as to why they're not revealing this, is because they don't want more revolutions on their hands. They don't want the masses to go out there and then blow them off and be uncontrolled. That, in my opinion, is evil, that they think that way. I think, unfortunately, that is a big part of why we're not being told some of these things, is because the oligarchs and the controllers,
I just wonder to myself, Walter, is this an inherent trait in human beings? I mean, you think about this. This is, rinse, wash, and repeat is what we have seen throughout the centuries and millennia. I mean, when does the stupidity end and intelligence, really come into play? I mean, we have a real shot at changing things right now.
Look, whenever things can be changed to a degree, and the change works for a while, but unfortunately human nature, even well-intentioned human nature, usually does something to screw it up. It comes and goes in cycles. See, I reject when I hear people say we can make a better world or we can make the world, I don't want to use perfect, but you know what I mean. We can make the world a place. No, actually, to a degree, yes, but that might not be the point of this life. The point of this life might be to work on yourself, to make yourself a better person, to make yourself a better soul. And when things get better and we have a good world, it's when everybody's focusing on making themselves truly a better individual, because then you've got a bunch of individuals that are trying to be good and making themselves better. So by default, this environment they've created is going to be better. But the idea that, you guys need to tell us this, or if we could just have that, everything would be perfect, that might be missing the point of human existence. I
certainly agree with what you said about, this lifetime, because we live multiple lifetimes. That's my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm an incarnationist myself. I've accepted that for a long time.
Yeah, me too. So, there are lessons after lessons to be learned. So if you take that part into the picture, the lessons are so minute in each lifetime that we live that, whether here or wherever else we choose to do that is part of the process of growth. No question about it. Well, my question is, why the hell did I choose to incarnate on this planet?
You might not have chosen it. Could be one of those things where it's a process, and, we're all just in various parts of the process, and you got to keep going through that process till you get through the end of it. And there might be a good reason why none of us can really answer clearly exactly what's at the end of that process, because it's like this. The real world that we come from, that true reality that our soul or whatever comes from, is so wonderful and so much better than this place that if everybody had a clear memory or vision of that other world, everybody would be killing themselves to get there. Yeah, nobody would waste 5 minutes in this existence. And here's the thing:
I always say that this is an assignment, that we had an assignment that we had to come here for. And I don't know why I raised my hand.
Well, again, it goes back to you might not have had any choice.
I know. I was told.
It might be that this is the way it is, and when you're there on that other side, whatever that other side is, I think you have a full, complete picture as to why you have to come down here. And you go, oh, okay, here's my next time. And then when you get down here, for purposes of the process and the experience in doing what you have to do, yes, your memory is murky. It's clouded. Because why? Because you're supposed to focus on what you're doing, like Yoda told Luke Skywalker in that really good Star Wars movie from years ago.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi. Or no, The Empire Strikes Back.
You know, pay attention to what you're doing. You know, get your mind clear on what you have to do. And I think that's why and again, this is when I say I think, this is my speculation. I'm not saying anybody else has to embrace this. I'm just confident in saying this, that's why that other side is murky to us, because we have to endure in some of the things here, you know, that we have to endure, and we got to focus on paying attention to why, you know, we're here, because something tells us in our guts, okay, we sense that it really is all for something, and we really will be better at the end of all of it. And,
Agreed.
You know,
I absolutely agree with that statement. I wouldn't disagree with anything about that. You know, I find it so curious, Walter. It's like, you know, when you run into somebody and you look at them and you say, God, it seems like, you know, I've met you somewhere before. I've known you somewhere before. Probably, you know, that deja vu, because you have. You have, because we're all connected. Every consciousness on this planet is connected. We are all part of the same process. We just forget that when we come in.
How about this? How about we're able to connect to each other, you know, rather than a big collective?
Yes. Yeah.
See, I'm opposed to the collective. That we're all just...
I got you. I know. We're not Borg. I got that.
Exactly. Thank you. I refuse to be assimilated.
Yeah. Yeah, I always describe it as this: is like if you look at a one-celled organism, well, people, if you have a lousy microscope, you'll see, you know, that amoeba, right? And it's a round little thing in a petri dish. But then if you have a really powerful microscope and look deep inside that, when you start to look at it, there are hundreds of billions of things happening within that little amoeba. Well, I equate it to, here we are, this is our little bubble universe, right? We live in this universe, and then we are the little things within that amoeba, all individuals, all working together to separate and expand. So you have the amoeba, which, you know, makes a copy of itself, right? So now there are 2, and then there are 4, and then there are 8, so on and so forth. But each one of those are individuals. Though they retain that consciousness, they become individuals themselves.
Exactly. They have a unique soul, so to speak. They have a unique identity, a unique...
Absolutely.
And this doesn't take away from the teachings of loving your fellow man. You don't have to be in the Borg to properly show, you know, love and compassion to your fellow man. Part of the point of being individuated in this experience is to learn to do those things being detached. See, that's part of the challenge of human life. Here's the thing, there'd be no point in learning lessons about love and compassion if we really were some Borg. And this is what really drives me nuts with the screw-age people is...
what really drives me nuts even more is this AI crap. That makes me even nuttier.
Singularity.
You know, it's insanity.
You know, I look at it this way. Those people that really embrace the collective, I like to joke that this is their first time on Earth. This is their first life, and they're scared. Yeah. They're like, oh, my God, oh, my gosh, I'm here. Where am I? What is this place? I'm conscious. I have consciousness. What do I do with it? You know, they're panicking. So they just want to live in cities, and they want to be part of a group, and they want to just assimilate into this singular collective consciousness, and they convince themselves that, you know, oh, that's where I feel love, and so therefore that's what everybody else must do, and that's where the problem arises, because they start telling everybody else that they need to do this. And
no, I absolutely agree with you. I got to tell you, man, you and I probably see more eye to eye than most people I know. Not of course, BADBABY, she's right in there. So I mean,
we're on the same page, honey.
Yeah, it's just I run into so many individuals in this world and right now who are so clueless, Walter, that when I tell them to look up, you see that geoengineering, the chemtrail spraying. They're like, "What are you talking about, dude? That's a cloud." It's like it's like slamming my head against the brick wall every day, Walter.
But you got to
just say that people that aren't awake, I can't be around them because I just can't. I can't stand them. They're ignorant.
But you'd be missing the point, because maybe the purpose of your interacting with them as a person has nothing to do with enlightening them to these things. Maybe it's just, their value is, just somewhere else, not based in what they know about these things. They probably know things we don't. They probably understand things that you and I are struggling to figure out, see? So you got to, I know where you're coming from. I know the frustration, but I have learned to step back.
Yeah, me too. I just don't say anything.
And say, you know what?
I don't either anymore. I used to do that years ago, and I just stopped.
You gotta just say, hey, is it really important that everybody know about the as much as I do about the chemtrails, or as much as you,
right.
Whoever?
Right.
You got to step back and you got to go, no, not really. I heard the actor James Spader say something in an interview once a few years ago that has stuck with me even more than his brilliant characterization of Red Reddington on The Blacklist, which I love. But he said something in an interview. He says, you know what, I was one of those people for years where I always had to be right. And then one day I reached a point where I said, you know what, I can be right or I can be kind. I chose kind, is what he said. And, wow, that stuck with me, more than volumes of...
That's a big lesson to learn,
Oh, yeah.
I just experienced something like that myself lately, and I said, well, I can be angry or I can be in love, so I chose love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's powerful. It's incredible.
It's coming from an actor. I mean, my gosh.
Well, look at Jim Carrey. Look at Jim Carrey.
Look at Jim Carrey.
He's awakened. He is awakened.
Maybe.
and it takes people eons to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Or just
You're
a
right.
moment. Everybody's, a lot of people are different. They could learn it in a singular moment.
Now, Walter, is it time for you to leave us now?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, I have to go. I have a family obligation. I'm somebody's ride home from work.
Oh.
Okay. I just noticed the time, and I didn't want you to be late.
Oh, no, you're right on time. We're good. We're good. So.
Well, Walter, I just wanted to tell you it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you for the first time. You've given a lot of things to think about as well. I don't ever follow the herd. I've never been that, and you just give me even more to think about, and it's been a real pleasure speaking with you this evening. I have to tell you.
I appreciate you having me on. I hope your audience doesn't want to lynch you. I have that effect on some people.
We don't care over here.
No, we don't.
Attitude over here is if you don't like us, turn us off.
Well, thanks for having fun. I look forward to talking with you guys again sometime.
We'll have you back, Walter, and you drive safe. Love you.
Oh, all righty. Talk to you guys later. Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye. So that was a lot of fun. What an enlightening conversation, right? I mean, it's great because you can get different sides of people's thoughts. You get their take on what they believe or how they see things. And, I never dismiss or disregard what people have to say. That's the beauty of doing things like this, Bad Baby. It's a wonderful thing because it only helps to increase your thought process. It helps you to become a little wiser.
That he is on the same page that we've talked about many times privately on the phone about past life and how and coming here for a lesson learning experience or something we have to learn but we don't know, and then eventually when we finally figure it out, the light bulb comes on. But and it's just so obvious that I've had past lives. I mean, how attracted to the 20s am I? I've had I know all the music. Exactly.
That's the whole thing. There are certain things that attract you to that why, because you've experienced it before, and you say, yeah, I just love that. Why do you love it? Well, you have no good explanation. You just say, oh, wow, it just makes me feel good. It makes me move. Or there's something so romantic or attractive about that. You can't explain why. You just know why, right? It is that. Or you see somebody, you meet somebody for the first time and go, you seem like I've known you forever. That's because you probably have in other lifetimes.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, beautiful thing. The process and evolution of consciousness and physical life and the other side, it is so mind-boggling to me. And I think about this stuff all the time, and it gives me a headache because I'm like, so what other lives have I lived? I mean, especially with my contact experience,
there's a movie, God, I can't think of the name of it, but there's a movie about a guy that when he dies and he goes to heaven and he falls in love with this girl, and they're like on trial. I can't remember the name of the movie.
Yeah,
but they're like on trial for their life.
Right. Defending My Life with Albert Brooks and what's her name, the other actress, Meryl Streep.
I love that movie, especially when he went in there and they did a life review for him, and he was Tarzan or something.
Yeah. It was a great movie.
A funny movie.
It was.
She was native, a black native at one time, and that was a bizarre movie. It really was.
That was wonderful. It was a wonderful film. It's one of my all-time favorites. Absolutely.
Oh. See, that's another thing. Like the first time we talked on the phone, it was like we'd known each other for a long time.
Oh yeah. No question about it. I mean, I feel a kinship to you, and I'm not afraid to say it. I love you dearly. It's like I've known you lifetimes. You're a good friend, and I care about you, and I care, what happens to you and what you do, and what goes on in your life.
I know you, and I love you too.
Yeah, I love you deeply. And the reality of it is
that your state's away, and that I come under all these attacks.
I know you do.
You know what it does to my health. When
and it breaks my heart.
Attack, I start getting seriously sick, and
I know. It breaks my heart when that happens. But you know what? I guess everybody has a role to play, right? But I also say that there's karma. There's deep karma involved in whatever role they're playing for their lessons to learn. And boy, for whoever's doing that to you, they are going to pay a very heavy karmic price, period.
And I believe that all the other people that are targeted, that their karma, the people that are doing it are going to suffer, because they say you suffer 10 times what you put out on someone. So,
that's absolutely
to suffer
right.
what I go through 10 times, I wouldn't wish it at one time on anybody.
I agree, but you know what? They're bringing that onto themselves because they have to learn that lesson. That's the whole thing. You do wrong to somebody, you're gonna pay for it.
I wouldn't want to learn that lesson. That's for sure.
No, heck no. And you got a heart of gold. And I just want to tell everybody out there who's still listening that we Bad Baby and I, we love you. We love you all. This is the reason why she does this. This is the reason why I had done it. And then she asked me to be her co-host, which I absolutely love doing. But I want to wish you all happiness and love and enlightenment. And I want to wish you the very best for the new year. And, fear not. I love this. Greg Hunter says this all the time. I listen to him religiously. He's a great guy. He says, fear not, for the Lord, knows what he's doing, and there's nothing to fear. And that's a very good motto. Right. It's a very great thing to go by. There's nothing to fear. We create our own fears because of our own consciousness and the things that we listen to and hear, and we develop this we put ourselves in little bubbles of fear or love or light or whatever we do, but there's nothing to fear because it's just an experience that we're having right now for us to learn. It's a conscious expansion of our own life, our own mind in this existence. And guess what? You get to come back and do it lots and lots more times.
Don't tell me that. I don't want to come back.
Oh, see, that's everybody says, I don't want to come. Guess what? Guess what? Whether it's here on Earth or some other planet with some other species, you're going to get to do a whole lot of things.
I don't want another assignment.
Well, that's part of the lesson, the assignments, right? You go do your homework. Go do your homework. Oh, no good. You got a D. Go back and do it. It's like going to school, right? School, you got to graduate. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, so on and so forth.
What it is.
How's that?
It's the school of life.
That's right. It is the school of life. That's exactly right. And I'm just glad, I'm so happy to be awake and to be in the position that I am. I really am, because I get to tell. I get to not tell, but I get to. It out.
You look back when you were younger, all the stupid crap you did.
Oh,
and then,
God!
When you finally figure out what you're really supposed to do in life, it's like, God, was I ever stupid?
It's as simple as sometimes as taking care of somebody in your life. That's the assignment. That's the lesson. Or it's as to raise a child. It's as simple as something of that nature, because it gives you the experience of the reality, what it means to bring another physical human life into existence with consciousness, to train them, right? Or to take care of somebody who's maybe they're doing it like my father, right? And I had that experience, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world, to take care of my father for the last 4 years before he went to the other side, and to have that experience. I cherish that. I cherish it. And I wish more people, they're so afraid of it, because they look at their own parents and they see through their eyes their own demise in the near future. Don't be afraid of it, because there's nothing to fear. It is just part of the process of enlightenment, conscious enlightenment. That's all it is. There's nothing to fear. You don't disappear. You don't go away. You don't go into oblivion. That's all nonsense. And especially the Catholic Church, because of my background, Italian, Catholicism, all that. I mean, these people put the literal fear into you that if you don't follow certain rules, you're going to burn in some furnace somewhere for eternity. It's insanity. It's insanity. And yet you got all these priests, right, molesting all these little kids, which is coming out more and more and more. I mean, it's just insanity. I was going to burn in hell because I was a teenage mother. Yeah, right, sure. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The nonsense that people believe is unreal. But I really mean it to everybody listening. I wish you nothing but peace, love, and light. And I want you to have a wonderful New Year, which is, 2 days, I think? Or is it 1 day? Oh. Yep. But anyway.
I hate to tell you, but I'm not going to do any more shows after this year. I'll see you next year.
We'll worry about it.
Didn't I?
Yes, you did. I was like, what?
Hello? I'm so glad that you guys are all in my life. I love you all, and we had a great year. I want to thank you all for joining us this year, and let's just do it again next year with more love and more light and happiness, and try to get through this life just being there for one another. Let's just be there for each other.
Absolutely, because that's what it truly is about.
And I have no idea do you have any idea who we got coming up? I don't know.
I have no idea. I think Peter, is it Peter coming in?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Peter wants to talk. Peter wants to talk about what happened to him. We won't tell you what happened to him. But
we'll save it. And hopefully we'll have Dane Wigington coming on. I sent him the email, and I'm looking forward to his response. I know he's very, very busy. Hopefully he'll make the time.
Information about Travis Walton, too.
I saw that. I did see that. I got the email. And you know what? Travis is such a nice guy. He's just so humble. I had a chance to talk to him a couple of times. He's just a very genuine, humble guy, just saying, look, this is what I went through. And, when they made that movie, Fire in the Sky, Hollywood, of course, misrepresented his story completely. He's like, they left out all the important stuff, and it does Hollywood bastardized version of truth.
They exaggerated some things about when he was on the ship, too.
Yeah, big time. So, I know, crazy. But anyway,
let's see if we can get him on and get his story out. Get the story straight.
Well, we'll give it a shot. I'll try and get a hold of him. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
But again, I want to wish everybody New Year, and we'll see you next year. Yes.
Yeah. And everybody be safe out there for New Year's, please.
Yes, absolutely. Very good call.
And on that note, I think I have a bumper song here. If I can find it. Actually, I can't find it.
Would you like me to sing? I'll sing.
No, you know what happened was that I keep losing my internet. This has been going on for like almost 3 months now. I've had, I don't know how many repairmen out here, about 5 of them. And the one guy came back a second time, and he goes, "What's going on now, honey?" And I said, "Oh, nothing. I just wanted to call you guys to have you come visit me." And at that time, when they came over, I had 148 times we had lost the internet since it started. And it's been another month. So I'm probably over 200 times.
Right.
So that's why I don't have a song, because I lost the internet. I have no internet connection, you guys. I'm not even going to be able to close this out until I can go unplug my router, plug it back in, and try to get the net back.
Oh, man. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. And it really drives Jeff crazy. Every time I hear him yell, he's like, and I'm like, "The internet's down."
Oh, my.
Look at it this way. It's a good excuse to get up and stretch your legs.
That's a good point. Oh, Lord.
So I'm going to let you talk for a minute while I go unplug my router.
Okay, honey. Well, we were going to end the show early, but it's 10:01, right? 10:02. Just turned 10:02 in Phoenix, Arizona, where it has been chilly. Actually, I got to tell you guys, it warmed up for the last 2 days, and now it's starting to cool back down. But the weather, man, can't believe the amount of snow back east. I'm like, holy cow. To see that amount of snow come down, wow, mind-blowing. But then again, we're supposedly going through the solar, maximum or mini ice age or whatever. But I still think, because I know what I saw, guys, remember me telling you about this with Marshall Masters, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Where I definitely saw the binary twin to our sun, and I was like, wow, blown away. So I personally believe, and this is my belief, that this is what causes all the turmoil on the planet every so often, whether it be 360 years Gil Bessard or 3,600 Marshall and Zachariah Sitchin say. but we're going through it. And again, I say this and I repeat this, I absolutely believe it will not be nearly as bad as everybody has made it out to be. Yes, we're going to have changes. There's no question we're seeing the changes now. You know, look what happened in Japan, right? 2011, and the meteor, the fireball or meteor, whatever, that exploded over Chelyabinsk, damaging 1,200 buildings. The fact of the matter is, these things happen. You know, we live in an ever-changing universe. We are part of a binary system, which, of course, our wonderful people at Never a Straight Answer, NASA, love to, never tell us the truth. So we had to disseminate all this information for ourselves. So do not fear, because things will not be as bad as we think. We will persevere, and we're going to see a bright new future, and I'm glad you're back. Did you get the internet back up?
Oh, well, I'm waiting for the blue light to come on.
I know. That
oh
fatal,
my God,
that fatal light. You're like, come on.
All right, I'm back. It's like, I'll bet you I'm way over 200 times now. I'll find out when the guy comes out. He's coming out the first week of the year. They aren't sure what day. They've done everything. Right? I've had like 2-3 new routers. They ran a new line from my house to this box, and I mean just everything. They're trying to say, well, it's because I got more than one computer running, and we unplugged all the other computers, and it still does it. We got one computer running.
That is a bunch of BS.
I know. Well, that's because they ran out of things to try to.
Right.
They ran out of things to tell us.
I'm waiting for the day they come over and say, "Well, we really just don't know." How about that one? Hey, we don't know.
I've talked to them so many times on the phone. I said, you know what? This is a recording.
Right. This is a recording. Please come over and fix my internet. Thank you very much.
You don't know how spoiled you get, having it all the time, and then when you get this hassle, you realize how spoiled you've been.
Oh yeah.
So but at least I can, crank it up like an old, radio? Crank it up like an old radio and get it running again.
I was just going to say, what about the people in Puerto Rico, right? Who've been without electricity for 3.5 months? Think about how they're toughing it out and dealing with all this. I know how they're toughing it out. Remember last winter when I didn't have electricity for 18 days. That's right. And that's going to die. That's right. 18 days. Hello, in the middle of winter. The worst part was that my locks were frozen on the barn and I couldn't get my truck out. So I was really trapped in my house. Oh boy. Oh man, locks frozen. How the heck do you take a hammer to it and break it open? I don't know. No, I took a torch out there and heated them up one time, but it was just too cold for me to deal with all that. And thank God I had a lot of gas, so my generator kept going until up to the end. The last couple of days I lost my generator, and that was really rough. But I lived. Yeah, no kidding. Okay. I'm glad you got all that firewood, because I went out in the street and flagged somebody down. Help me! I'm dying in here. Right? Help me! I'm dying. That's not funny, though. I mean, really. It's really not funny because 18 days, no power, and that's the whole deal, right? Because we're so used to the modernization of our society, then when that goes away because we don't know how to deal with it, we all of a sudden go in a panic, and that's where the survival mode kicks in, right? Right. And everybody paying attention to this show knows, you know what? You have your survival food, and you have your survival gear, and especially where you left. My Lord, you're talking about 17 below zero.
You got to remember, too, my water runs off of a well, and without power, I had no water.
That's exactly right.
So I had no way to flush my toilet. I had to go down to the pond and bring buckets of water up. And I was sitting here thinking, God, am I going to be able to do this for the rest of my life? Because 18 days is killing me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's over 2 weeks.
I got a good test on it, and believe me, if this is the way we have to live, if the power goes down or EMP goes off or, who knows what's going to happen, it's not going to be fun, people.
Yeah, no kidding. And you're exactly right. I mean, you're basically going through the scenario, right? You went through the scenario of 18 days. Think about it if it's an EMP, right? Now, extend 18 days to like 18 months. So you got to survive under those circumstances. Hey, you know what? Our forefathers did it. They had no electricity. They had nothing. They knew how to live off the land. They knew how to do things, provide for themselves. So guess what? If that comes in again, that's what we're going to have to do. And for the ones who don't know how to do that, we got our hands full because we're going to be helping a whole hell of a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's where the lesson part comes in now. Now remember what we're talking about here, because that's why it's good that you learn your lesson now, that the biggest thing is to love and help one another. Because when all this goes down, we're not going to live. We're not going to survive if we don't love and help one another.
Yeah, I mean, how far do you think you're going to get in your car with a tank of gas, right? I mean, once that gas is gone, most likely any gas station around is going to be completely empty of gas because it'll be completely siphoned out by people looking for gas, and they're not going to get much further than you or anybody else. The whole point is community. You got to come together as a community to survive. Who's going to do what skills do you have, and how are we going to put them to use? Because as a lone wolf, guess what? Everybody who's watched all these stupid movies of these, the lone wolf, he comes in and kills the bad guys, and goes, that is complete fiction. It doesn't happen, and it will never happen. And if you don't get together as community, you're not going to make it. That's a fact, period. End of story. And there are plenty of stories out there that you can read in modern time right now that people have gone through war situations that went exactly through that. And they had to survive. Right. Community. That's the only way it's going to happen, because without that, you're dead. You're gone. You're finished.
So you have to forgive everybody right now and start learning. Doesn't mean you have to, when you forget, this is the thing people don't understand about forgiveness. They think if they forgive somebody, they still got to have them around their life. No, you can forgive them, and you don't have to be their doormat. You don't have to keep them in your life. Just forgive them and let it go.
That's exactly right.
Cutting the ties. It's called cutting the cords. There's a cord that keeps you connected to that person, and actually, by not forgiving them, all the negativity that they have, that they've projected on you, they drain your energy through that cord.
100% correct. That is 100% correct.
I've done my homework, I know.
I know. It's not like I have to sit here and tell you. I know. I mean, there's just so many people out there.
What you do, I may as well finish the story. What you do is you visualize the cord connected to this person and say, I forgive this person. I'm not going to carry this pain anymore. I'm cutting this cord of connection, and they will have no more further contact with me.
All right.
And that's it. And then you don't carry that pain. You don't get drained of the negative energy, and you can actually, it kind of lets you start to breathe, doesn't it, Robert?
Yeah, it sure does. My internet went down too. That was weird. My internet went down too. How about that?
Oh, okay. Well, I better go before I make everybody else's internet go down. Okay, well, everybody, thanks for joining us.